So Suzanne Collins' new Hunger Games book is coming out this month, and I thought that I would reread the Hunger Games trilogy in preparation for it. Now, I haven't read the Hunger Games for a very long time. I know for certain that I read them when I was 10 years old, but I didn't read them from 13 years old onwards, and now I'm 18, so it's been like 5 years, I think, where I haven't reread the books. Is my maths right? I hope it is. Anyway, in this video I will be rereading all of the Hunger Games books and just kind of reviewing them and seeing what my thoughts are. Okay, so book one. Thoughts. The thing is, when I went into this series, I really didn't know what to expect because I wondered whether the books seemed better in my 10-year-old mind than my 18-year-old mind, but these books are still really impressive. One thing that I immediately noticed, which I don't think I noticed before, was that these books are all like really tightly plotted. Okay, so there's 27 chapters in this book, and as you are aware if you have read the Hunger Games, it's split into 3 parts, so part 1, the tributes, etc. And each part is exactly 9 chapters. So this book is split into perfect thirds. These books must be super planned out and well plotted before they're actually written, and the other books follow the same pattern as well, which I think is really impressive. Like, I think it just goes to show how much effort and thinking Suzanne Collins put into writing these books. I think this book actually was very interesting to me because when I first read these books when I was 10 and I was like probably a lot dumber than I am now, I don't think I really noticed the nuances regarding Katniss and Peter's relationship. As in, when you read this, actually maybe it's just because I know the ending and when I was 10 I didn't. The whole dynamic between Katniss and Peter is really interesting because at the start Katniss is like, oh my god, I'm gonna kill him, he hates me, this is all just a lie, he doesn't love me. And then at the end, when you realise that she's just pretending the whole time and Peter actually does care. I don't know, it's kind of interesting because you kind of just want to go into the book and say, Katniss, he actually does love you. Which brings me to a major point that I want to discuss with the Hunger Games. And what I think is one kind of personal flaw that I found with the book is that a lot of it hinges on Peter being really in love with Katniss. And I think that this just kind of irks me a little bit. I'm really cynical about the idea of a 16-year-old boy being so in love with this random girl he never even talked to that he's going to do all of these things to help her. Does that make sense? I just think that it's really hard for me to believe that Peter is really in love with Katniss. Is it love or is it just like some weird infatuation? Because, I mean, okay, if you're a teenager, are you really going to sacrifice your life for some random person that you have a crush on at school? Like, does that make sense? I don't know. And I don't really have anything else to review about these books. It was just really good though. Like, I was almost surprised by how good it was. And I know that I loved these books when I was young, but I thought maybe with age I would be a bit more critical of them. But no, they are totally gripping. This book is 100,000 words approximately, I believe, and you can read this in like a couple of days and you can get through so many pages in just a night because it really just rushes you and grips you and you just have to keep on going on and on and on. So yeah, this was so fun to read and I was honestly pleasantly surprised by it. It's so fast-paced that you're never bored and you can read it very quickly, and I think that is just a result of it being really tightly plotted and there's never really any moments in the story where nothing happens. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Also, my copy is really beat up. Like, I don't know if you can tell, but it's got like, and then I have like pages that are like covered in dirt and that looks gross. But I'll tell you a story. When I was a youngling, like when I was like 10 or 11 and these books were all the rage, I think the movies were coming out then, and I was really obsessed with the series. I would take the series with me when our family went camping, and that's probably where all the dirt came from. And I would pretend I was Katniss and everything. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Hunger Games. Okay, so time to talk about Catching Fire. Now, first of all, I just wanted to talk about how the Hunger Games, like the actual quarter-quell Hunger Games, are only 1/3 of the book, which was really surprising to me because when I went into it, I thought that quarter-quell would be a lot more of the story, but literally it is 1/3, and I just couldn't believe that because in my mind the quarter-quell was such a big part of the story, but really it was surprising to see how much of this book focused on the victory tour and everything that's happening in District 12 and also all the districts and all of the rebellion stuff. And I I don't know, I just couldn't believe that that much was so much of the book. And honestly, while it was interesting, I did think that I wish that we could have seen more of the Quarter Quell. That being said though, the Quarter Quell was done so well in just 9 chapters, so I can't really complain because this part was just non-stop action. Like, the clock thing was really smart. The thing is, Catching Fire would be my favourite if there was less of the first 2 parts and more of the third part. I think that I just personally am more interested in the Hunger Games rather than the Rebellion. And I know the Rebellion is still really important, but I think that the whole Quarter Quell thing to me was just more interesting. Like, even the interviews and the training and all that stuff that's part of the Hunger Games, I feel like that was all rushed over really quickly, and I wish that more time was spent on that. It has been a while since I've watched the Hunger Games movies, but I do think that there was more time spent on the actual Quarter Quell in the movies, so maybe Catching Fire is my favourite movie, but the Hunger Games book is my favourite book. There were interesting things in the first part of this book, but it still feels like it wasn't that eventful. But yeah, otherwise it was really great. I think it was really fun to go into this already knowing the whole conspiracy thing to get the tributes out of the games and see how that all plays out. Like, we have Plutarch with the clue with the watch, and we also have the part with the bread that gives the code of when they're going to be broken out, which I didn't remember, so it was cool to see that again. But I do think that it was kind of rushed towards the end where everything is happening at once. So in this short amount, they explain everything that happened, the whole conspiracy thing, and it's literally just a paragraph, and I think that maybe it was really rushed to explain firstly the end part where they use the wire and they get broken out, and then all of the chaos, and then the explanation. Like, I feel like it's really cramped, so possibly everything could have been shifted around. And while I do really admire the tight structure of these books, it is a little bit rushed at the same time. I mean, in my personal opinion, but it was still really, really entertaining to read and really gripping. So I finished this one, and then I have to read Mockingjay, which I remember from my childhood. I really did not enjoy Mockingjay. It was always my least favourite. Let's see how it goes. Hey everyone, it's Mia, and it's the 3rd review of this video, and it is Mockingjay. So going into this book, I was really curious because I have this vivid memory of me being, you know, young when I first read this and really disliking Mockingjay. In fact, I couldn't really remember much of the events that occurred. So the thing about Mockingjay compared to The Hunger Games and Catching Fire is that I feel like these plots, the structure of them is just a lot more smooth. I feel like it's smoothest in The Hunger Games, but then Catching Fire is a little bit different because The Hunger Games is in 1/3 and then there's 2/3 dedicated to other random stuff. But this book, in my personal opinion, is just like a mismatch of random events, and then in the final third a whole bunch happens. So in that way the pacing is kind of weird. Honestly, I found the first 2/3 kind of boring. Honestly, the whole book was kind of boring, but that makes me sound heartless if I say that. But in the last third, a lot of things happen, like a lot, and I couldn't believe how much happened, like even in the span of 1 chapter. Like, a lot of people die, but there's no time for that impact to settle in. It's just like, they died, okay, we need to keep on going on this mission. And then in the very last couple of chapters, so much happens. And then there's the epilogue. I like the epilogue, actually. I think that the epilogue is really nice to just show what happens afterwards, and it just gives a nice sense of hope at the end of this book, because this book is so depressing. Like, honestly, the current situation with the world is already depressing enough. So this book was just even more depressing. I mean, it is realistic to have all this terrible stuff happen. However, I do like the epilogue because it's kind of a happy ending in a way. And it's good to demonstrate how time has moved on and how, you know, they learn about it in school and everything. And how Katniss is with Peter now, which I always wanted. Honestly, I didn't really care too much about the love triangle, but it is nice that Katniss ends up with Peter and they have a happy family together. I don't really know what else to add about Mockingjay, but I really don't like it. Like, for example, these books, I would give them 5 stars easily. However, I really don't know what to rate Mockingjay. Maybe like 2, honestly, like, because I only think it's okay. Anyway, that's it. Those are my reviews of these 3 books that I recently read to prepare myself for the new Hunger Games book. And it follows President Snow, which I don't know if I've already mentioned, but Just reading these books again makes me remember how horrible Snow is. So it's going to be really interesting to read a book from him, like him as the protagonist. So if you want to see more videos from me, consider subscribing because I am soon going to put out a video reviewing the new Hunger Games book once it's released and once I've read it. So that will be out soon, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks again for watching, and that's it for the video. Bye!